Right.
All right, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you are either here or online for the September 27th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. Since we have some new guests here this evening, I'll introduce the board. Come on in, folks. Did you sign in? Okay, thank you. Did you sign in, Mr. Knapp?
Not signed in.
Okay. We'll give you a chair. All right, let me introduce the folks here representing the town. Starting my far right, Kim Burkert. She's our remote access facilitator. John Robatella, who's our recording secretary. Scott Neal, our planning board member. Amanda Van Laken, planning board member. I'm Chuck Euler. I'm the chairman. Chris Nadler, our attorney, and Lance Brabant, representing MRB, our consultants. Online, we have two other planning board members, Mark Tolbert and Bob, of course. And also joining us online is our town planner, Shauna Onchak, who I think most of you folks know. All righty. The procedure this evening is very simple. We have a podium. I will go through the agenda as published. And when your application comes up, if you're representing that applicant, please come to the podium. Give us your name and address. Make a presentation as to what your application entails to the planning board. And then planning board will offer any comments, questions back to the applicant or his designee. And then I will open the, especially regarding public hearings, open it up to the public for anyone who would like to speak or ask questions on the application. And then we'll reconvene the planning board to deliberate over whether we're going to take action. And in most cases, we do take action, and we'll take that action and let it be known this evening as to how we feel. I think that's about it. So let me first ask anyone in the audience, either in person or remotely, if you'd like to address the board on something that is not on the agenda. This is privilege of the floor, so if you have an issue that you'd like to discuss with the planning board, now's the time to do so. So I assume everyone's here for a particular application. Let me also point out that we have two emergency exits. Should we have reasons to leave the room, please use one of the two exits. And let's move on with our agenda. Tonight we have one new public hearing. That is for Liberty Restaurants. It has been duly advertised in the Daily Messenger on September 20th. And we have publication justification to prove that from the Daily Messenger. And let us follow the agenda. The first item is listed as a continued public hearing. Really, that's a continued site plan. It's something that's been before the board for a couple meetings. I think we have to push it further on. The Mr. Shepherd and Ms. Burke did not get their application into the ZBA. If you recall, there was an issue regarding the setback from a stream. Streams off the property, required them to go to the ZBA. They have either not submitted the application or just submitted. Is that right, Shauna?
They have not submitted yet.
Okay, so without the action of the ZBA, this body cannot take any action on the site plan. So I would ask for a motion to continue it. I think, Shauna, you had said that this thing would get pushed back to November 22nd. Is that correct?
If they do submit by our October deadline, yes.
Oh, okay, but the earliest would be November 22nd.
Correct, that would be the earliest.
So I think a motion's in order to continue to November 22nd meeting of the planning board. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make that motion to continue this application to November 22nd for CPN 22-051.
Motion, have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Scott seconded, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then the public hearing we do have tonight is regarding Liberty Restaurants development representing Whitewater Roseland Center from the Syracuse owner property at 3225 State Route 364, requesting a special use permit for a fast food restaurant. I will open the hearing, but I will first say that also on the agenda tonight is a site plan, single stage site plan for the same property to build the restaurant. So knowing our attorney likes to take things in order as far as approvals, that it'd be site plan, well, seeker site plan, special use permit.
Yes, sir.
I will open the hearing for the special use permit. We'll discuss it. I'll close the hearing, and then we will not take action on the special use permit until we take action on the site.
I think you could do the two. I mean, the two are interconnected. I think you have to do the site plan and the special permit together. Obviously, the public hearing only relates to the special permit, but I would conjoin the two applications so that they're heard and considered and deliberated together.
Okay, so let me open the hearing. Again, the reason for the special use permit is the construction or the placement of a fast food restaurant in the zoning district. Is that CC? I think it's, doesn't say on it.
Yeah, CC.
CC, okay, in the commercial district. So as part of the shopping center. So is someone here representing Liberty Restaurants regarding the special use permit? And probably best thing to do is let's discuss rather than just focus on a fast food restaurant being a use, let's look at the whole big picture. So if it's okay with the board, let's look at the site plan, and because I think it all goes hand in hand. So if someone is here representing, I think, Brett, are you available to?
Yeah, I'm on, I don't know, can you hear me? I'm on Zoom right now.
Okay, we see it and we hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you a brief overview of the project. The property, the parcel is currently occupied by an existing brick building, which was a former financial institution. I think it's been a couple of uses based on what I learned last week at the ZBA meeting. Popeyes Restaurants, or Liberty Restaurants, who is a franchisee of Popeyes, would like to construct a 2,532 square foot fast food restaurant with a double drive-through. One of the things that we looked at, and one of the things that are really advantageous with this parcel, is the design of the parcel, or the configuration of the parcel, especially now that we've obtained the variance for the 100-foot setback from the state highway. The really nice thing about this parcel is it allows us to really separate the drive-through traffic from the dine-in patrons by having the drive-through lanes go around the outside of the building and the parking areas. And this does a couple of things. It allows for a lot of stacking in the drive-through lane. But for me and for the applicant, one of the most important things is it allows for safe and pedestrian access to the building. A lot of the traditional drive-through restaurants, they have the stacking right alongside the curb line and the parking on the outbound side of the curb line, usually directional at an angle, which requires people to cross over that drive-through stacking lane or drive-through lane, to which side of the building you're on, and to enter the building. And that becomes a real issue, especially when you have wheelchairs or needing handicap access facilities, trying to get to the handicap access ramp, which quite often is blocked by drive-through traffic. So this site actually worked out and laid out really well. You can see if you're looking at to the left side of the print up on the screen, you can see there were 2 access points into this site. We will be eliminating one of the access points, the southerlymost access point. You can see the 2 catch basins there and where we're cutting that off. The other important thing to know is we're doing very little as far as construction outside of the existing asphalt surface area. Just on the south side of the site where we've got that drive-through and bypass lane going around, we will be going into the green space there. However, on the east side of the site, we're actually increasing the green space from what is there now. So we'll be removing the asphalt and restoring the soils to an impervious to a pervious surface. So we do have a decrease, an overall decrease in impervious surface on the site from what is there now. Another major aspect of this design is that we're able to maintain that existing green space buffer. And you can see on the screen the different shades of green. The darker, more olive green is our existing trees that we'll be maintaining on the site. So we're trying very hard to maintain those. They're mature. They offer a great buffer between the intersection and looking out over the sea of parking for the Roseland Center. So I think maintaining those was always something we tried to do. And you can see we did add some additional in the brighter color greens, some additional landscaping in the landscaping islands, as well as within that area that we're cutting off for the existing entrance into the site. Down to the south would be the southeast corner. We have a double dumpster, which will be screened properly. The actual material of the dumpster is a split face block to match the building. So you don't have a lot of places use fencing and things like that. They use a split face block that matches the building, so it looks and blends with the site design. As far as the overall traffic circulation and pattern in the Roseland Center, you have only one ingress egress to the development, and that's on the north side of the site, parallel to routes 5 and 20. That ingress egress actually accesses the loop road that goes around the outside of Roseland Center. So should you be traveling west out of the site and out of Roseland Center, you may opt to actually drive that loop road around. The good thing about that is it prevents the traffic from interfering with the traffic in the pedestrian traffic for Roseland Center. Then if you were traveling east, you may opt to take a left out of the site and go down to the existing entrance, which goes out to, and I don't recall the name of the road, to the east side of the site, but it's relatively easy, and all the traffic through the site should be pretty wholly separated from the overall Roseland Center pedestrian access between the parking lot and the facility. So we feel confident on that. And lastly, we do have a set of comments from the town designated engineer, and we've reviewed them. Most of them are minor technical, actually all of them are minor technical comments. We've already started working on getting those addressed, just making sure that the photometric plan meets the zoning standards, and with some updates on some of the erosion and sediment control details. But other than that, we feel pretty confident that the site is in the site plans are in good shape for moving forward. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the board if you have any questions, and be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Board members, questions? Bob, I know you had some, you had sent over to us.
Yeah, I had a couple. I don't know, I'm not really in a favor of one entrance to the parking without that exit that's currently there. It just seems like it's gonna be a choke point for, say, large vehicles. For example, a big truck, I own a big truck. I don't know if I could get in there and then go out of there safely. And with that, my thought also would be, there's no pedestrian access to your site. There's plenty of sidewalks all along the road, either road, and there's no access from the mall area. So I'm kind of interested to see if you could possibly put a pedestrian access to your site, either for the mall access side, people working in the mall want to come over. You're talking about the public safety, that aspect. So that's what my two concerns were public access, sidewalks, and a choke point on that driveway, that parking area.
Would you like me to address those at this point, or do you want to wait until? we have
Yeah, why don't you, Brett?
Yeah, I feel confident that the ingress egress, the single ingress egress is more than adequate, whether you have a large truck or not. That road is plenty wide enough. This is pretty characteristic for any large development. Actually, you've got, looking at the site plan, you've got a pretty good run from that nearest intersection into the site, a straight run. Then you can opt to turn into the drive-through or into the parking area. The drive-through itself, and one of the things that we really stress was making sure that we have enough adequate stacking so we don't create issues at that choke point. And having done 6 or 8 of these site designs, I don't feel that that's going to be an issue. With regard to the pedestrian access, we can certainly look at connecting the pedestrian access to the existing sidewalk on the road to the east. That is something we looked at. My concern about too much pedestrian traffic coming in from the existing shopping center is you are crossing over those drive-through lanes, and that's something we've tried to avoid to the maximum extent practical.
I think it's gonna happen anyways. And I think we need to have something safe for somebody to walk there. So
That's
if not,
something we can take a look at.
From both ends, I think, Bob, right? From Moran Road and from the plaza.
correct, yes. So I think they're gonna be walking down that hill right there, that grass and knoll. Yeah, there's gonna be, I think that just, yeah, I don't like it for pedestrian access.
Well, I know at PRC, we discussed having access from the either 364 or 5 and 20, because there are sidewalks on both sides, so there's no obligation on the developer to install sidewalks, but there could be an obligation and a need for sidewalks or some sort of access from those sidewalks down to the building. And I think that's what one of the things you're saying, right, Bob?
Yeah, yes, it is.
There is a requirement to link to the existing sidewalk. That has to be done.
I'm sorry, we heard a beep beep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Repeat that one more time, Sean.
There is a requirement in the Uniform Building Code that it's going to require Popeyes to connect to the 5 and 20 sidewalk. Excuse me.
I can tell you we will, if this is something the board and is a requirement, we will connect out. I think the easiest location, and I think we talked about this in the previous meeting, would be at the on the Moran Road side, which all those sidewalks are interconnected. Would that be acceptable?
I think we should look at both and see what's, before we make a decision tonight, I think we should
Okay.
consider the merits of both. It's my opinion.
Okay.
Just to add to Bob's comments on large vehicle, I would be a little bit concerned with emergency access around the outside of that property as well, with anything that needs to come through in the event that you do have heavy traffic. I see a pinch point that happens around that southeast corner over by the dumpster area that could create an issue for access as well. So it's just looking at general flow in the event something does happen. I know they can always come in from the outside roads, but then they're having to cross over non-paved surfaces to get to that area. So I would just echo Bob's comments on the pinch point concern.
We can certainly put some turning templates for fire trucks through there, just so you can see both both locations. I can assure you would have adequate turning radiuses to get a fire truck around there. And I definitely know that the pinch point you referenced down by the dumpster, there's more than adequate room. That's about 30 feet wide I think that's a 30-foot inside radius there. So that's more than adequate to get a large vehicle around without any issues. But we can certainly show that on the plan.
So the traffic flow coming in where the stacking lanes, the queue lanes are, that's essentially 3 lanes wide, 2 lanes for pickup, and 1 lane for through.
That's correct. And the 1 lane for through is really only there in case somebody decides that they don't want to continue with waiting in line or pursuing their order, or in the off chance a vehicle breaks down in one of the pickup lanes, you can adequately get traffic in and around it from an emergency standpoint. And that's the function of that bypass lane. But that lane itself is 30 feet wide, which is more than adequate to get 3 lanes of traffic around.
While we're talking traffic flow, on the north side of the new building, you have 2-way traffic going to those 5 parking spaces.
That's correct.
I can't, do you have a do not enter sign?
Yes, there are do not enter signs at the entrance where
So
the
people don't
where the
back out
drive-through
and
exits.
they don't back out and conflict with the traffic from the pickup. Okay.
Right.
Board members, anything else?
No, not really a question, just a comment that the landscaping plan I'm pleased with. They're leaving a lot of the existing and adding to it. I think that's nice. We don't see that a lot. It's nice.
I agree. I have a signage question or clarification. It looks like from the plans, all the signage will be on the physical building. Are you proposing or planning for any signage off of the building, like facing either the streets or anything like that?
No, it will just be building signage. And that building signage, we will be before the ZBA next month to discuss, the quantity and size of the signs. And actually not that large. The actual signage itself, unfortunately, with the code and the quantity, we are requiring a variance. And we will be discussing that with them, and we'll be going through that process.
I've got a couple things. First of all, just where's the name Moran Road come from? I've never heard that called Moran Road. Is that a legit name? I'll Google it. Okay.
That's when WCTR reminded.
What's that?
Yeah.
It's the side road when you coming through North 10 and over 5 and 20, so like the laundry mat, with that area.
Yeah.
It's the end. So we're the other end. So you have 364 entrance down by like LMB. Moran Road is that other
Okay,
road.
so
That little
from-
many road in between.
From Lake Shore up to 5 and 20 is
Where the
Moran.
credit union is. Is there
From
a
Lake
map?
Shore to 520, yes, that little strip is Moran.
Okay, I learned something. Glad I showed up. Tree, on your landscape plan, I don't know if you specified tree species spread. Or,
The colored landscaping plan does not have it. However, there is a black and white landscaping plan in the site plan package. Should be sheet L1, I believe. And that would specify species, size, that type of stuff.
and they're all non-invasive, natural plants, trees.
Yes.
Okay, the number of parking spaces you're providing, you said you based it on one space for 3 seats plus 8 employees.
Right. There's 24 seats, plus 8 employees, that'd be 16 spaces. And I know we exceed that. I don't know off the top of my head how many spaces we have there. I can count them up, but I know it's more than 16.
I had 22 in my notes.
22.
Is that-
So, I mean, the planning board has discretion on number of parking spaces. Does the board feel that that's an adequate number? I think it's pretty good.
I think it's adequate, and I think, I mean, post-pandemic or maintenance pandemic, if you will, are more people going physically in to eat or place an order? I mean, is the parking too much? I would ask.
Somebody's having an event there, or get married at Popeyes,
Hey.
there's plenty of parking. Sea of parking spaces. Right next door.
Yeah, there are a lot of
That's true.
spaces in the shopping
Yeah.
center. Sure.
Yeah, Chuck, that goes to my point about parking in the mall parking area. If they can't get into that other parking or don't feel they want to get in there, is they're going to park in that mall area next to it and then walk over and then have pedestrian traffic.
Mhm.
I mean, fortunately, this site is kind of tucked up in the corner. It's not subject to a lot of the mall traffic, but there's always that potential. I don't know how. Are you just, Bob, are you thinking just some pedestrian crossings across the driveways?
Yeah, what I'm saying is there's a parking lot to the west of this building that the mall, you park there in the mall. Nobody ever parks there.
Yeah.
And if they park there and then walk across the grass, walk across one road, walk across the grass, walk across the parking lot into the Popeyes, I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, no matter where you put the pedestrian crossing, people are going to cross somewhere else.
Yeah, I know, but right now there's nothing. So
Yeah, there's
that's what I'm
nothing.
saying, if we had something for that, or even a sidewalk that goes split those trees or whatever into the parking, I just know it's going to happen there.
Well, if you provide a sidewalk from the driveway where the queuing is up through that grass strip, some sort of pedestrian path, and then a crosswalk across the driveway, would that ease your concern?
Yes, it would, definitely.
Right to hear what we're saying?
Yes, I do. I can
Okay.
certainly relay that to the client.
What do we expect in hours of operation?
Typically, they're open from 10 in the morning until 11 p.m.
I think one of the things just to keep in mind is there's going to be event times when CMAC has activities down here too. So I think when we're looking at pedestrian traffic, I would guess that we get a fair amount of pedestrian traffic that comes from the south again, coming back from over towards the college. And then during an event, I know that parking lot, I've seen it happen where that parking lot at the entrance, which will be the new entrance, becomes very confusing to people trying to get out of that space as well. So I think actually cleaning up some of that roadway issue should help that, because I think people will also try to get around they enter that space thinking they can get out of the parking lot. So I think being conscious of that pedestrian traffic that comes in from the south, and then just being cognizant of what may or may not happen during concerts and the like over at CMAC.
Well, fortunately, the state put in that sidewalk on Moran recently, and I think, as we were saying, maybe some sort of access from Moran down the hill to the building would take care of that issue.
Yeah, we did look at that, and I think from the Moran side, the grades are much more conducive to a handicap accessible sidewalk than coming down off of 5 and 20, which is a pretty good grade down into the site.
Steps or something. Your speaker board, where the I guess the attendance request, what their orders would be. I think there's no residential around here across Street 7. Yeah. So I think we're okay as far as the speaker boards being.
We've got Brentwood Apartments right there in the south corner.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Well, do we feel this? I don't know what the decibel of a speaker board would be, but are they soft enough that they don't go? Well, I guess does it go off site?
Well, that's probably more of a question of whether or not there's a timing issue, isn't there, for like noise ordinances and things? Isn't there a 10 o'clock? Curfew is the
don't
wrong
have-
word, but
We don't have a noise ordinance.
Brett, can you give us the sheet number for a plan that shows the surrounding areas and the site, the proposed plan?
Probably the first sheet would have the surrounding areas the best. That's the existing Alta survey. Not sure. I'm not familiar with where the apartments are located. I don't know if whoever has control of the cursor can point that out.
To the east.
yeah, they're due east to the main building there.
There,
Look at the Google Maps.
Hmm.
The other side of that main driveway.
so they're directly where the speaker boards are pointing.
Or on that side of the building.
Okay, so they're south of the speaker boards.
Thank you.
Well, if we could just be assured
Yeah, I mean,
be assured that the sound would not project across the property line or off the property line.
right, and if so desired, we can add some additional landscaping buffer between those two, knowing this, and that, to be honest, I think good conifer trees probably can buffer the sound better than anything.
Okay, and related to that, the menu boards, you know what size they are? Are they? The only reason I bring this up, I know in our form-based code, we have a 20 square foot max for menu boards. So I guess would each drive-through have its own board, or is there a master board?
Yes, each drive-through has its own menu board. As far as the size, I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And the traffic markings that you show as far as the arrows, your intent is to actually delineate that, place it on the pavement?
Yes.
Okay. Was NIDOT, we didn't get anything from NIDOT as far as 5 and 20 now, I guess because it didn't have any access to it. We got no comments from the fire department. Understand, from what I understand.
No, I didn't see any in there. I didn't see any in the file.
Correct.
Shannon, I couldn't find the county planning board's comments on this. You recall what? If
I have them. Just give me a second and I'll pull it up quick.
I don't think they were on our site. Brett confirmed the applicant did get a variance for the setback from 5 and 20 at its meeting the ZBA meeting last week. Lance, any concerns you have? I know you had a thing about lighting.
Yeah, it was referenced earlier, so uniform code, there are some compliance issues related to what Chris Jensen's comments were, where it's just some sidewalk accessibility. So we referenced the condition, assuming the board were to move forward, for your consideration would be Chris Jensen's comments as it relates to the code stuff. Our review, we talked about lighting, photometrics being in compliance, there's some additional lighting stuff that we were looking for to be provided, and then the town of Canandaigua requires some drainage improvements when you're over a certain threshold, of which we've identified in our letter back to the design engineer that they would have to ultimately incorporate into the project site. One question I have for you, Brett, is I don't recall seeing the cross access easements. I'm assuming there are some existing for this whole site. Are you guys proposing to amend them to provide access and agreements between the plaza and you guys?
It's my intent that they would likely be updated to the new owner. We are currently, we have a surveyor researching that information now so that we can get that documented.
Wait, I thought Roseland or Widewaters owned this parcel.
They do.
Are you gonna subdivide it and sell it?
Please.
Oh, you don't need to.
They are looking at, and that's something that we're discussing right now, is actually subdividing off the parcel itself, which if that's the case, we would have to come back in with a subdivision application.
Shauna, did you find the county?
Yeah, they're pulling up. It's there.
Yep.
It's there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, yes, I found county, yeah, there it is. They recommended approval of the site plan. They did recommend denial of the variance, but at this point, that's the moot point.
Everybody heard, okay.
Decline the variance.
Sure.
That doesn't
Now,
make
it's
sense.
very- it's a safe one.
Right.
The county sewer district
It's coming.
is requiring a renovation permit for, I guess you're gonna use the same lateral? Sewer lateral, Brett?
That's correct. We're gonna terminate the existing sewer lateral, televise it, make sure that it's adequate. And then obviously we will be connecting, we'll have a grease interceptor, which has been sized in accordance with Department of Health standards based on the facilities within there. And the sanitary lateral itself will connect to that.
And the water service, does that have to be upgraded considering that's a restaurant, going to a restaurant?
Yes, that'll have to be upgraded. It actually is they require a 2-inch line. I don't believe the existing facility has a 2-inch line. We couldn't find any existing documentation. But my guess is it's quite a bit smaller. So they'll be putting a new water service in for the building.
And that shows on the site plan.
Yes.
Chris Jensen had no comments.
No, he did provide some comments to the engineer and to town staff. So I had updated the findings today to reflect that there was, I didn't see an official letter, but there was an email of comments. It should be posted on the website. And again, it had to do with accessibility to the building, crosswalks and uniform code and lighting. Were some of the basic comments to be provided.
We're good. The seeker,
Sorry.
go ahead, Mark.
Question on the complete street aspect down Moran. Currently, there's no sidewalks down through that area, correct, on Moran?
There is.
They showed, I didn't see those on the plans. And
There are sidewalks, Mark.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
was gonna say, I think if there's, I think you need a plan of the entire holdings of the applicant, which is Glidewaters showing the proposed as well, so you can accurately evaluate the traffic and the flow and the kind of impact, right? I don't like when we say, wait, where is something, when we're evaluating a plan. I think you're entitled to see it in front of you.
I think that's a good point, and I've made that to the applicant a few times. I think that it's important for us to look at the entire shopping center. You have a very busy Lions Bank, Five Below, the possibility of the Spirit Halloween store becoming Old Navy. So the flow of that whole plaza is something that we really need to consider.
Well, I guess when I'm in there, there's a lot of parking spaces. I don't know what's on the, in the future as far as development of the People Store and Joann's is in there. I'm just trying to figure out how we tie that to this application, all that. Other than it is part of that shopping center.
Well, maybe it's a bigger, larger conversation. Just, yeah, as a shopper, as someone, who frequents TJ Maxx, et cetera. It's not, obviously there's ample parking, there's more than enough, but it's the cut throughs, people that are cutting through the parking lot can be very dangerous. Just something to consider.
Cut throughs, I guess this, you're coming around here, and you get lost, you're looping. I guess you just sort of need to see what this looks like before you can render a decision. That changes the traffic flow. Whether for the better or for the worse, I don't know.
Well, I think the corner's get a lot more traffic than it gets now.
Yes.
Even when it was open as a financial institution. It's going to get more traffic, no doubt about it. And can we go back to our site plan for what the applicant's proposing? Okay, that's current. Okay, so, and that's, I mean, they are cutting off that one access way. So it's only one way in and one way out.
Correct. I mean, in my feeling for the site, I think from a traffic flow and traffic pattern, offloading, all the vehicles from the site into one location, which either goes to the loop road to the west, or you can take that left your way back out to Monroe, two lefts. I think from a traffic standpoint, the traffic flow should be pretty simple in and out of the site. With regards to existing traffic flow within the facility, to what are there.
Yeah, I think if you leave that other driveway in, you're just adding more confusion, and by not having that driveway, you add some more green space.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's keep moving along here. Does the board have any other questions? I do want to go, since we're also addressing the special use permit.
Mr. Chairman, just let it run. We do have a public hearing for this too.
Yep.
I'm sorry, just want to make sure we can do that.
I just want to make sure we
Nope.
go over this. Yeah, we do have in our general provisions in our chapter 220 of the zoning that special use permits must be approved by the town planning board only after it's found the following standards have been met. One, the proposed special use permit is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the town's comprehensive plan. to the proposed use is consistent with the stated intent of the zoning district in which it occurs. 3, that the location, size, and use of the structures involved with a proposed special use permit or size and layout of the site are in relation to proposed special use, so that, in other words, it's not over designed, as determined by the code enforcement officer. Facilities shall be impacted by the proposed use of conformance with the New York Fire Prevention Building Code. The operation of the proposed special use is no more objectionable to the users of nearby properties by reason of dust, smoke, noise, odors, fumes, pollution of the air, water, including subsurface waters, unsightliness, or similar conditions that would be the operation of any permitted use. And where applicable, the satisfactory provision arrangement has been made concerning as far as ingress and egress to the property and the proposed structures thereon, with particular reference to vehicular pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control, and access in case of fire or catastrophe. Adequate off-street parking has been provided. Refuge and service areas have been provided. Utilities as appropriate have been provided and shown. Screening and buffering. Provided signs, if any, should be in conformance with signing requirements, required yards and open space. I think the rest of them are sort of just a repeat of what I just said. So in our deliberations on the special use permit, just keep those conditions, standards in mind. And I didn't see anything. I think we talked about a lot of them already regarding parking and ingress and egress and pedestrian access. Traffic flow, refuge has been provided. We talked about utilities. Are we comfortable with the screening and buffering? I think it was offered by the applicant that additional landscaping would be provided on the south side of the property where across the driveway from the apartments. So that would be a requirement. You have that?
Yes, we
plan?
could provide that.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Anything else that the board is concerned about that we didn't address? And if the board members are willing to offer a condition to make sure that we cover your concerns, we'll certainly consider it. Bob, you had mentioned about the sidewalks. I think we've said that sidewalks be provided from Moran Road to the at least the building or to the driveway. That some sort of access be provided from the existing parking lot at the shopping center to the building. I'm comfortable with the traffic flow as shown. Bob, do you still have a concern about a second access?
Actually, while you were talking, I looked up parking lot sizes, and 24 feet, which they're showing, is one of the standards. So we have to go with that, I guess.
Okay. Mark, are you comfortable with do you have any additional concerns, conditions you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think if, I mean, we got no comments from fire, so if they're not concerned about it, and with Bob's comments, I think that's fine too. It's just, I think we've addressed most of the points.
Before I close the public hearing, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the present or virtually like to address the board, expressing any concerns they may have?
I'm just curious, maybe it's too early to ask, but,
Ma'am, would you give us your name and address?
oh, sorry, my name is Nikki. I actually own a restaurant adjacent to the Rosa Plaza, so that's why I got the letter. I'm just curious, what do they project in their sales? You know, how much sales are they projecting they're gonna have to do to bring this fast food location into Canandaigua?
How much sales?
Yeah, I mean, they have to put down those, they have to know, I mean, it's a fast food chain, corporately, they have to know before they even would look at the site to say it's feasible to support. So I was just curious if they knew what kind of sales they're projecting. Like I said, it might be too early to ask that, but
I'm sure they did their due diligence in determining.
well, I mean, is that a question for?
I don't know if the applicant has to answer that or if he
Okay,
has the answer. He's the engineer. It's certainly not something within the purview of the planning board
Maybe it was for the.
to ask about the projected sales. Hopefully they've done their homework and they'll be, which restaurant do you have, Nikki?
I had Peppers.
Peppers, oh, okay.
Okay, we just, I have a lot of local businesses that knew I was coming, or just curious. I mean,
Okay,
it's-
well, thanks for
Overall,
coming.
it's the local guys, we're just curious what they think, I know, you can smile, but it's. We
All
just
right.
wonder.
Anyone else, audience, virtually? Okay,
Chuck, as a condition, did you want to say some screening from the speaker board?
I have it.
Brentwood.
yeah, we talked about screening on that grass strip, between the driveway and the building, which would be on the speaker board side.
I called it the queuing lane in the apartments.
I found this on the web.
Okay, so I'll close the hearing and we'll move on to deliberation on the seeker. This is a unlisted action. The applicant has submitted a part one. Anything I did see on question 17B of the part one. Will storm water discharges be directed to establish conveyance systems? The applicant answered yes. And they requested yes, briefly describe. So there was no description as to how they would be conveyed, how they'd be handled. So I think some responses needed there to make that part one complete. So you would include that as a
I'm sorry, I was writing that into the condition. What was-
17 on the seeker, on the part one, 17B.
Good.
The response was yes. But there was no description as to how. Anybody find anything else on the seeker? There is there some architectural? Well, there's flips on the archaeological.
Shippo? So you're asking? Historic Preservation Office?
12B.
Will be, yeah, it says yes. Brett, do you
Have the note back later.
you have any response to the question 12B having to do with archaeological sites on the property? The automatic generated response was yes from the EAF mapper.
Right, and we typically, we wouldn't even, the EAF mapper, it checks off because of adjacent sites. It also includes adjacent sites, and I'm not certain what those are. But that being said, this site is a previously disturbed site. Almost all the development occurs within areas that are currently paved, which would typically negate it from any additional studies under SHPO.
Okay. So if you find any Indian heads, you'll let us know.
Will do. I doubt we'll find any though.
Is he required to provide a?
So what I would suggest, being that it's been identified as a yes answer, even though I agree with your answer that the site has been previously disturbed, that is ultimately the decision of SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. So what I would recommend is that you coordinate with them, you get a no impact letter, and you provide it back to the town prior to issuance of permits for that site.
We can certainly do that.
Pleasure resolve 17B. Stormwater
13.
discharge.
That's 12B. It's the
17B.
archaeological, then.
Yeah.
And 13B, for the proposed action, physically alter or encroach upon any wetland or water body. Oh, whoops, you said no to that. Okay. Does the site have any wetlands? And again, the mapper said yes.
They're adjacent. They're not.
They're not on the site.
Again, that would be adjacent to the entire parcel probably in the back, I would assume. There's no wetlands on or adjacent to the development area.
Okay. All right, I'm good with seeker. Let's,
I just had, so how did we resolve 17B? Is that a condition?
17B
That was your
is,
first point, Chuck.
he's
Sorry.
going to provide how they're going
Okay.
to do the conveyance. So that'll be a condition of the,
Okay.
I guess it's a condition of the seeker. The condition of the site plan,
Just site plan,
the site plan,
to update the secret.
okay. Rather than muddying up the secret. All right, so we're ready to move on, I think, with the seeker. May I have a motion to consider the determination of non-significance of the unlisted action for part one?
I will move that.
Okay. And Lance has provided part 2 and 3. It's filled out by the town. So I have a motion, to have a second.
Second, Bob.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, motion second, further discussion, if not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Is that a late yay, yes, or okay? Okay, sure. All right, let's move on to keeping it in order that our attorney would appreciate. Let's do the site plan. Lance, do you want to go over the conditions that you have for
The ones that are identified are the new ones.
the
The new.
No.
new ones? I think
I
the
have
other
a
ones.
total of 14 identified, 9 shown currently. I added the additional. Number 10 is all variances as approved by the ZBA to be detailed on the site plans prior to signature. Number 11, again, some of the wording can be altered. I just trying to write it down. Number 11, additional landscaping / buffering is to be provided along the south side of the building between the queuing lane and the existing apartments, and is to be shown on the site plans prior to signatures. Are we okay with that general area?
I am.
Yep.
We didn't specify the number of trees or.
Yeah, we didn't specify.
Say acceptable to the planning
Yeah.
board chair.
Prior to signatures and acceptable to. Okay. Number 12, the site plans will be revised to provide safe pedestrian access in the form of sidewalks and crosswalks, to provide connection to the access road identified as Moran Road and the existing plaza. I don't know that we specifically specified where or how he's going to connect. There's going to be some issues because you got to transfer pedestrians across his queuing lane. So he's going to have to show something that works both from a code standpoint, emergency vehicle standpoint, and the town standpoint. So I thought it'd be better to leave it vague as opposed to direct them to something that might not be able to.
Might not work.
We'll say acceptable to the planning board chair as well, so that it's not just any access, and then Chuck can take into account advice from the town engineer. And then also, I think that condition needs to include in signage. Because they
Pedestrian
actually,
access in the form of sidewalks, crosswalks, and signage.
So that we access Moran, there'll be access from the shops.
didn't Shauna say there has to be access to 5 and 20 too?
Shauna,
No, there has to be an access point. It doesn't have to be 5 and 20, but it has to be one or the other.
so the Moran would probably suffice.
With the grade there, I'm sure Moran would be easier.
Yeah, Moran's gonna be for sure. All right, so then 13, the seeker fully or short EAF part 1, question 17B is to be updated to provide an answer. And then number 14, prior to issuance of a permit from the CEO, a no impact letter from SHPO is to be provided.
Okay,
Those are the 14.
that along with the ones already listed.
Do you need the new menu board size?
Well, is the menu board size similar to like signage, which is a separate
Right.
review done by, assuming it meets code, they just put it in.
Mhm.
If it doesn't meet code, then it would have to go through a
Yeah.
variance process, unless the board specifically wants to see
And
something.
I took that menu board sizing off the form-based code. It just, it's, oh, it's got a menu board. I wonder what size. Non-form-based, Shauna, do we have a requirement for menu boards?
I actually have a note down that I need to look and see what that is, and
Okay.
if we have one. I have to check into that.
Okay, well, whatever that says, I guess the 20 square foot that we came up with form-based was just something that was developed specifically for form-based.
Well, the fast food special, there is no special permit for a fast food restaurant, it's just a general special permit, which is interesting. Usually something like this, the town would have a list of specific requirements like that.
Mhm.
In this case, there isn't.
All right, so there are the conditions. Do I have a motion to act on the site plan?
14 conditions.
I will
With the
make
14
that motion
conditions.
to approve the site plan. Single stage with the 14 conditions as discussed here.
I will second.
Okay, motion second, further discussion? Bob, Mark, you're okay with the conditions?
Yes.
All right. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and lastly, related to this property is the special use permit for the fast food restaurant. If we agree that the application meets the condition standards that I stuttered across, I guess we're in a position to act on the special use permit. And you have a resolution in front of you. Further discussion on that?
No.
Okay, someone want to make a motion?
So moved to accept the special use permit for 69 or 59?
I think this
69.
69 is the
69
special
for the
use.
special use.
Okay, motion second, please.
I'll second.
Mark.
Mark seconded, so I have a motion a second to apply the special use permit for a fast food restaurant on this property. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time this evening, and I appreciate letting me participate remotely. Made it a lot easier for me. And again, I appreciate all your input, and we'll certainly make those, take care of those conditions for you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving along. We have a new site plan from Mahar Engineering representing Anthony Tintera, project engineer. Well, that must be Anthony. Representing Brian and Angie Jocelyn, who live in Columbus, Ohio currently, but I guess they're hoping to move to Canandaigua. Also, we also have the names Lisa Roberts and Larry Jocelyn, who currently live in Las Vegas. And they jointly own property at 3611 County Route 16. They're requesting a single stage site plan approval for a tear down and rebuild of a single family home with graded extension on an existing driveway. Approximate square footage of the disturbance is 2,750 square feet. It's in the RLD. See, you also went to the ZBA last week, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and you got your variance, so you're in front of the planning board tonight. And if you introduce yourself and tell me who you're with and where you're from, and you can make the presentation.
All right, yes, hello everyone, can you hear me just fine?
Great.
Hello, my name is Anthony Tintera, I'm a project engineer with Mahar Engineering. Representing the applicant for the project, Brian and Angie Jocelyn, for the project at 3611 County Road 16. Before you tonight, seeking single stage site plan approval for the project. As Chuck mentioned, that was before the zoning board of appeals last Tuesday for the rear or lake setback associated with the site. I just want to give a brief overview of the project, the site and its challenges, and then turn the discussion over to the board for any questions or concerns you might have. So with respect to the site, it's zoned RLD. Based off of the agenda, I just want to point out that we're no longer seeking the approval of a graded driveway extension. Previously, when we were corresponding with the town of Canandaigua, Shauna and Chris specifically, we confirmed that a graded driveway extension would be considered towards lot coverage for the site, at which point, given the challenges and constraints already present, we did not want to exceed the existing lot coverage.
So your disturbance square footage is less now? It's not 2750?
It's approximately, well, it's certainly less than an acre, such that no speedy use permit is required. It's maybe on the order of 3,000 square feet tops.
Okay.
So with respect to this lot, zoned RLD, it's very small, situated between County Road 16 to the west and Canandaigua Lake to the east. On site is an existing single-family home, which over time has sustained flood and damage, such that renovations to the home aren't really as feasible as the tear-down rebuild that we are proposing. In rebuilding a single-family home on site, we're looking to meet the floodplain development requirements outlined by the town of Canandaigua and the state, such that the bottom floor elevation is above the base flood elevation of Canandaigua Lake. Ultimately, the existing home has a lot of nonconformities. For instance, the existing porch encroaches within the right of way of Westlake Road. With the proposed home, we're looking to avoid that encroachment and mostly keep the proposed house footprint within the existing home's footprint. Hence why the rear lake setback variance was requested and approved last week. Ultimately, the site has an existing shed, has an existing deck. With the existing seawall bordering the lake, there are no improvements associated with that are being proposed, such that there's no disturbance in proximity to the lake aside from on site. Ultimately, with the home that is proposed, we're looking to max out the building height requirement outlined by the town of Canandaigua, but avoid the need for a building height variance. And coordinating further with the town also, we were looking to avoid the building and lot coverage variances if we were to exceed the existing building and lot coverages, such that we have a slight reduction on both on-site building coverage, namely because the porch that encroaches in the right of way has been removed. Ultimately, it's a steeply sloped lot. Stair access that exists currently along the north side of the home is supposed to be rebuilt, coming down to the rear lake yard. Additionally, with respect to the shoreline development guidelines, given that we are increasing the appearance from the lake with maxing out that building height from what currently exists, we're proposing to soften the appearance of the new home from the lake by introducing some new vegetation in the rear yard. Concept layout of that landscaping is shown on our drawings. At this time, no species have been confirmed just yet. So, like I said, it's just shown conceptually.
Can we put the landscape plan up?
Separate.
Yeah. Can you tell us
Sorry, yeah, so that should just be on our sheet C1.
site plan date 1922?
One more, right there.
Where you were on, well, if you go back to the previous document, you were on our sheet C2 or C3. So if you scroll to the top, C1 would show at the bottom. Yes, just a little bit lower than that. Yeah, so yeah, detail 5. So at that point, we're proposing some small shrubs, maybe full 4 trees present on site. We'll certainly consult a landscaper for what the recommendations are, given the exposure to sunlight, the proximity to the seawall, as well as to the home. Other than that, worth noting with respect to the seeker process, the site was flagged for presence of bald eagles and also for archaeological sites. At that point, letters earlier on in the project had been provided to the town regarding no effect with SHPO and no permit jurisdiction from DEC for any sort of effect on bald eagle presence. What comments we had received for the project so far have been pretty limited. Don Havens had weighed in from CLCSD with some comments regarding notation on our plans. The existing sewer lateral is proposed to be reused. And talking with Shauna and Chris extensively over the past several months, we've coordinated dialing back our original variance requests, which had included building height, both coverages and the rear lake setback, but ultimately we reduced that to just the one setback variance. So at this time, I'd like to turn the discussion over to the board for any questions or concerns you might have.
Parking. So explain again what's going to happen with the driveway as opposed to what was proposed.
So the existing parking access to the lot is situated on the southern portion of the property.
I want to go to the board, Anthony, actually.
Yes, certainly. This is this is the proposed plan. So the existing shed is located right here, approximately to the property line and the neighboring city to the south. The existing asphalt driveway is between both of the existing homes. In the future, it may be advantageous for our clients to pursue that graded driveway extension. So at that time, I think it would be necessary to review from the town's perspective how that graded driveway should be perceived. If it is completely open with grass underneath, should it be considered lot coverage? Ultimately, right now, there's very limited access off of Westlake Road. By eliminating support, I think site distance is somewhat benefited along the road, but there's really minimal change to the access to the lot itself.
And the stairs are going to be redone. The retaining wall is going to remain. Can I see that? So the stairs will be redone. Retaining wall won't change.
Yes, there's minimal change in both. Well, there's a detail provided on our C1 that shows the spot elevations for the adjusted stairs coming down, but there's really minimal change there. One thing we are proposing to be added to the top of the retaining wall would be a handrail coming down.
Yeah, there's there's one now, but it's.
There is one. There is one right now. Yeah, coming off of the existing home.
Bob, you had a couple of questions, I guess.
We lost Bob.
Oh, we lost Bob?
He's trying to get back on.
Okay. Well, I know Bob had a concern as do I, and I think the rest of the board regarding landscaping. Anthony, this is a huge change from the single-story bungalow that's there now to a 2-story, 2.5-story, I guess, structure. My first concern was, would it affect the view from the lake from people across Westlake Road, and there's really nobody lives over there, so, and they're way up on the hill, so that's not an issue. But in terms of the lake view, it is quite a change from what's there now, and I think what you provided in terms of landscaping is far from adequate. You just got to do something more to soften the impact of that building. What kind of facade is this going to be? I know that, I guess the architect's not here.
Yeah. Yeah, so the architect for the project is Pat Moravito, who's been involved with several other projects in the town of Canandaigua. I can't speak to the type of materials that would be used for your facade. But elevations could certainly be provided to board members to gauge. how
Yeah,
that
we
may-
saw that, and then there's a deck up top. That's certainly, I won't say unique, because a lot of people put decks on boathouses and such, but I guess there aren't too many that actually have decks on top of the house itself. So this is gonna be a change of the scenery in terms of coming down the lake and looking off to this side, and I think, like I said, you definitely need to do some more as far as softening the visual effect of this thing in compliance with our shoreline guidelines. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I think that was Bob's concern, and he's not back, but I'll speak for Bob, I'll speak for myself.
And I agree with you, Chuck.
Yeah, and I share that concern as well. I mean, I was just incredibly concerned before the height variance was removed, but it's, especially with that being near the types of parks and things that are in the area, I think it's gonna be a pretty dramatic effect. So I'd really like to see what they intend to do to improve that impact.
And I think it would have to be a definite plan, not a conceptual.
Yeah, and you've got to give us a tree schedule, species type, sizes, calibers. I mean, that's to meet our shoreline guidelines, that's something, it's a must. And we are pretty firm on that, and it's gonna mean going back to either someone in your office or some landscape architect as to how that's gonna be done. I guess the good news in listening in on the ZBA meeting last week, apparently the neighbors either side were in favor. They looked at this as an improvement over what's there now, which certainly, helps your case with them. That's good to hear. But again, we have to look out for the protection of the Lakeview, and you've got to give us something more.
Understood, and if I could follow up with that, with respect to the rooftop access for the home, or for the new home that's being proposed, it was brought up by the zoning board, whether or not any permanent fixtures would be situated up there, and I just want to stress to the planning board that there would be no permanent fixtures such that you have a projection that exceeds the building height.
Like a gazebo or canopy or something like that.
Or grill.
Yeah.
Outdoor kitchen.
No,
Oh, wait a minute, grill. They might have a grill up there, right? I think they have a kitchen, outdoor kitchen as part of the deck, if I recall. Do you want to go to the
house.
architectural plans? I think there was one drawing that showed the deck. Building house plans. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I don't see anything.
Try that. There it is. What's that thing in the lower right?
Blow it up, would you?
Outdoor kitchen.
Outdoor
on the
kitchen,
south
maybe.
wall.
It was on the back wall, on the street side wall. So there was
Or-
the intent to have cooking, and I assume,
The wall is.
I assume a table and chairs and
And like a countertop at 36 inches.
probably maybe an umbrella. I mean, that doesn't bother me a whole lot because that's typical. But,
And a 4-foot high wall.
It says 5 to 6, doesn't it?
The higher of the two walls is what's regarded for the building height
5
calculation.
to 6 high wall. Behind the kitchen.
The 24.88 feet is to the top of the high wall.
Yes.
Oh, so the kitchen would be below that presumably.
That's a high wall.
And I guess, yeah, any table or chairs, I guess a canopy would be higher possibly. So there'd be nothing projecting above that high wall,
That's the intent.
other than people top their heads. It's nice. You want to just stroll to the elevation, I think it shows Maybe it's just the house plans.
No, it's at the bottom.
Is it one?
Yep.
There we go. There we go.
Get
Okay.
back on by the.
What's that?
Say that again?
Bob will not be able
He will not.
to get back.
Okay.
John, let the record show we lost Bob.
To the internet, not.
Not to, not to
see.
life, you're right.
Yeah, we can. So this, so these are the elevation folks. I assume you looked at them. I think you did your height elevation based on mean grade and I saw your calculations. That was very, very detailed how you did that. Don't think we can argue with that. Object to that. You want to scroll down a little further or show the lakeside? Whoops, up to the-
To the
and
left.
to the left.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty institutional. I would say it definitely needs some dressing up, and I think that's what you get. You got to have somebody show us in that view as to what your landscape. Maybe it means a tree out in the area between the house and the brick wall. I realize people buy homes on the lake to look at the lake, so it's sort of a give and take between people looking at the house and people in the house looking at the lake.
And
So,
I mean, ideally, if this was on a separate like site, that sort of like keyhole effect that the town wants could be more easily obtained, but right now there's really no existing native vegetation.
well, I think at the very, I think you do show on that sketch of landscaping bushes either side of the steps there.
So that point, yes, the lakeside elevation that Pat provided, we can touch up, provide a better rendering that shows so colorized from the lake, how that would appear along with the landscaping.
And it would help to know what the type and color of the side facade would be. You can find that out, because we discourage anything light colored, white. We like earth tones and natural colors. And I don't know what the intent is in terms of the up top on the roof,
The railing.
the railings, yes. I've seen use
Are
of
we
like.
able-
Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, I was just, would it be too much to ask to kind of have a comparison to the neighboring homes that are there? So that we can see that as well.
From the lake, I'm assuming.
Well, both sides, but yeah, certainly from the lake is the most impactful.
We do have some drone photos that are drafted
From the lake.
from the lake view, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, and
I think-
first time as well.
I think Chris Jensen took some pictures along the lake too, and we maybe you can check with Chris. See if he can provide them. So that would be helpful. You're right, Mark. So getting back to the railing, I've seen where people have used like galvanized wire. It almost gives it the look of not even a railing, but it certainly provides the protection required under your code. Something to think about. Anyway, I think what we're saying, Anthony, is we're not ready to move on this thing tonight. We need to see something more on the landscaping. Anybody else have any issues that Anthony can address when he comes back to see us? And ECB also suggested more landscaping, making sure that it's non-invasive species. So we're all on the same page on that.
So with the windows, you need to know what kind of windows those are for the shoreline development guidelines for reflectiveness purposes.
Yeah, that would help.
Usually, yes.
Maybe having the architect here next time you come back, that would help too in terms of the building. Yeah, normally we don't get in a lot into the design of buildings, but with shoreline guidelines, I think it's our prerogative and we do take the time and effort to look at that.
I just have sort of a general, relatively new to the planning board in Agawam, coming from Silver's Point with the lots, many lots were like this. When you're in the construction phase, how are you doing that? If you're that close to Lake Road. How are you not disrupting traffic? I mean, I'm trying to logistically figure out how you're getting trucks in there and when I walked the lot, and I thought, how's this gonna happen logistically without disturbing everybody else?
Yeah, so I can't really speak too much, just like whatever means and methods the contractor would come up with. I know Butler Road is located a little ways south of the site. And certainly shoring would have to be provided adjacent to the road. So to facilitate that sort of excavation and reconstruction.
The house to the south, of this house, just had a major renovation and there were trailers and
Yeah.
pickup trucks on Westlake Road for months. While they were working that, and you had to, watch it.
I mean, I parked in
It's
front of the actual house, and I was like,
Right.
it's only
Right.
40 through there, 45.
Mhm.
That's when you open the door, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, so I'm thinking of truck and trailers and
Mhm.
construction.
Yeah, I guess right now it's all parallel parking.
Pretty much.
From the house, if you're
Mhm.
gonna visit the home, yet, and unfortunately, I guess taking the porch off, that adds you a little more safety space to get off the road. And I don't know, will the county have, guess you're taking the porch out of the right of way. You're not putting anything new in the right of way, so just from the county roads and bridges aspect, you're not really involved with them, and I know the plan was sent to them.
Was it Chris Day? In Parkwood? But we had coordinated previously on the project.
There was a response from Ontario County, I think it was
914.
Candido Lake Sewer District that responded.
Yeah,
DPW will potentially require a permit once it begins to do any work or have access to the site, which is a standard condition before it isn't provided for.
all righty, well, again, it all goes back to the lakeside, so if you could, you're certainly welcome to come back to our meeting October 11th. Okay, we will consider this a revision of an existing application, so if you can, Shauna, when do you need any information in from Anthony to meet the October 11th deadline?
Really, as soon as possible.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's close. Friday would be great if that's possible.
I think that would be possible.
okay. Yeah, that's the big issue, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think the rest of the board. That's what they're doing. So that being said, can I get a motion to continue? Well, I guess we don't. Do we need a motion still? Even for a site plan? All right, we'll need a motion to continue to the October 11th.
I'll move to continue 22038 to October 11th.
Okay, any questions? Okay, all in favor?
I'll second.
Oh, excuse me, you need a second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sure, just a quick question, Lance, that's what we ever got a formal letter from you outlining any comments for the project.
Okay, I sent it, I think I sent it in September 9th, but I'll forward it to you just to make sure. Again, not a problem. All right, sorry about that.
Yeah, it was mostly stormwater management, and that's something we didn't discuss, but downspouts, how are you gonna handle those?
Yeah, there was notes, it was dealing with the construction sequence to scenic shoreline, identifying the variances. We asked for some utilities to be labeled, the concrete washout area. Likewise, feasible construction staging area, how is that going to be implemented? Are they going to use a barge from the lakeside to get access and bring equipment in? Is everything going to be brought into the site? So mostly standard comments that we have on projects similar to this. I will most certainly forward it to you and apologize.
Give that copy to Anthony.
This one has my notes on it, so
Oh, okay, okay.
I will send it to you tomorrow.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you all for your time.
All righty, let's move the other side of town real quick and take care of a site plan for Parks Engineering representing Daniel and Julie Backus. requesting a single stage site plan approval for the construction of a new single-family residence, which includes site improvements, grading, drainage, utilities. Someone here from Marks Engineering
I
or?
think Brennan's on that. thing.
Brennan's
Yes,
here.
I'm here.
Oh,
San Francisco.
yeah, San
Hi,
Francisco.
how are you?
Good. Tell us about the practices.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, straightforward here. New single family house on Andrews Road. It's one of the vacant lots on the west side of the road. It's probably half mile up from North Road, or no, what road is that? Not North Road, 21, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's just a standard single family house, a raised septic system, longer driveway, a little pond area out in the front. We did get some comments from the town, Shauna and Lance, regarding the a wetland that encompasses the site, even though there's a house immediately north and immediately south. It's a federal wetland. We're working through delineation and jurisdictional determination on that wetland. The site does not appear to be a wetland. There is some reeds up along the road at a culvert entrance, but site doesn't appear to be a wetland, but we're letting the specialists take care of that.
Okay.
Oh,
Welcome back. Did you run out and pay your internet bill? Huh? All right, we're working on, Bob, we're working on 22060 Bacchus over Andrews Road. Brennan just explained the project to us, and we're opening it up to the board for any comments, questions.
I didn't have anything on this project at all. The driveway is not long enough for a turnaround, and I had nothing for me.
I didn't
Really didn't
have
think it's
anything either.
gonna fit in the character of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
what's there.
Just a general observation, according to Encore, we've got about 85% hardwoods in the area, but aside from that, the wetland was the only other thing that I noticed that they're addressing already as well.
And I guess there's some steep slopes in the back, right? Way back.
Way back.
I mean, this thing goes.
Yeah, you got steep slopes, wetlands, hardwoods, but to the side of the property.
I would make as a condition, I don't know if you had any review letter. It's that any NRI features that are on the property be shown, delineated, which includes, as we said, the hardwood, steep slopes, and
Yeah,
wetlands.
I can tell you that it's 100% buckthorn where that house is from my site visit and the perk tests we did.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking about, we've gotten into the habit of showing those
Yeah, yep.
features on all plans, and
Yeah,
as you
be glad
know,
to show 'em.
so even though it doesn't affect the construction, it's something, it's there for reference in the future. Lot dimensions, I know Lance brought it up, boy, it was tough to figure out, your meets and bounds don't show on any plan.
If you scroll back to existing conditions,
Okay, go. Show me meets and bounds.
okay, I mean, they surveyed it, so they should be meets and bounds there. It's probably just a layer that's off, and that's my mistake.
Okay, and there's the wetlands in the back, not the wetlands, the steep slopes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so help us out with the lot dimensions. So that would be a condition.
How deep is this lot?
You probably wouldn't conform with today's code as far as width versus depth.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
interesting.
how deep is it, friend? A lot. It's 5 acres.
I think it's Is he talking on me?
Yep, I was talking on mute. Approximately 800 feet deep.
Holy now.
800 by what?
I don't have that dimension in front of me.
Just curiosity.
It'd be 150 to 200 in width.
Okay, MRB, it's a letter of the 22nd, 21st, I guess, anything of any significance there? I don't think so.
No, it's pretty straightforward. I agree with Brendan. This is a pretty straightforward site. I think the unique thing was the features of the wetlands located on site. So we had suggested as a condition, just prior to the issuance of a building permit, a letter of no permit or documentation of a permit from U.S. Army Corps to be provided to the town. So that would just be a condition to consider prior to, that would allow them to get signatures, move forward. And then prior to actual construction, that permit would be provided if it's even needed or warranted.
Okay, ECB did not look at this, so no comments from them to consider. Fletcher, we get no response, though. That's a pretty long service line back there, water service, I guess. So whatever Jim's going to require as far as where the meter's located, and I guess it'll be up by the railway.
Yeah,
for sure. And I guess you have to bore under the road to get to the water main, right, Brent?
Yeah.
Okay. Fire, we got no response. And I think that covers it. Okay, any further questions? Anybody from the audience regarding this application? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion for seeker. It is a type 2 action. So I will accept the bundled motion for both the seeker and the site plan.
So
Which you could say by motion to approve the resolutions as presented. If you wanted to say.
ditto.
There you go.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna forget it because short-term memory is fun, but motion to.
Say whatever you want to say.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'll bundle seeker and type 2 action and center stage for 22060 with
8 conditions.
8 conditions.
If the 8th one was the existing features plan to be updated to identify the NRI features located on the parcel.
Yes.
I've got a 9th condition. Park and Rec fee.
Oh.
Don't forget the park and
I
rec.
forget.
So 9 conditions as discussed.
Okay, I got a motion, a second.
I'll second.
Please, thank you. On the findings, Lance, number 14, in the plans.
Yeah, I realized I looked on my.
Shoreline guidelines, a little far from the lake.
Well, you never know.
You never know. If we get hit by the hurricane, there's. Oh, yeah. Okay, I got a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, our folks sitting in the wings. We have a sketch plan review. Marathon Engineering is going to present a sketch plan from Edgemere Development Corporation. And for Parkside Drive, at a yet to be determined address on Parkside. And for a proposed 48 unit multifamily development of a 4-story building on a 1.5 plus or minus acre parcel with a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, community space, parking, and associated site improvements. Folks, this is not our first sketch plan from the form-based code, but it will probably be our first application, formal application at some point. So that being said, introduce yourselves.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Rowland from Edgemere Development. We will be the owner and developer of this proposed project at the end of the day. I think you did a good job hitting the highlights. So our goal is to create 48 safe, affordable workforce apartments on Parkside Drive. Sarah Catterley on Zoom is also part of Edgemere. So Sarah, thanks for sticking around, and we appreciate your guys' time. Some of our team members are here as well. Dan Glading, SWBR, is our architect, and Matt Tomlinson from Marathon, our engineer. Just like to say we're very excited to be here, and thanks for having us. And I'll pass it over to Dan to go over our concept and what we hope this looks like at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
Matt's going first.
How's everybody doing today? Matt Tomlinson.
Thanks for
Marathon
waiting.
Engineering. No problem. We'll be back many times before you over the next couple months, I think. So as mentioned, we're about 1.5 acres. This is kind of the last piece along Parkside Drive and similar in keeping for apartments on it. And this parcel has some challenges, although I think the form-based code really gives us a lot of opportunity to create a project that fits on a parcel that has several constraints from easements, shape, topography, and kind of close the loop. So as mentioned, we're 4-story building, which Dan's going to talk about. We've had some initial conversations with fire marshal and also town staff, as well as discussion at PRC. We also appeared at county planning. We did make full application for preliminary approval on this project, as well as a couple of variances, one related to the site and one related to the building, which again, Dan's going to touch on. And as part of the process and outline of moving through the various boards, we needed to come to you folks for sketch plan review and I believe referral to town board for consistency with the code before going into the variances and the full preliminary planning board review. And Shauna, correct me if I mixed any of those up, because I know we've been going back and forth on that. So what's before you today, 2 access points, again, reviewed protection with the fire marshal that really drove kind of the access points as well as visibility from those driveways, with being able to exit in each direction for the direction that you're going, with Route 332 being to the left of your plan or west, and County Road 28 near the Trolley Apartments to the south and east. We're proposing 42 parking spaces for the 48 units. We did several layouts on this site, and through research that Edgemere has for previous developments, as well as anticipated in an attempt to not overbuild parking, they found that historically, or with their projects, about 0.6 spaces per unit is roughly the ratio that they see. This is just a little bit higher at 0.87 roughly for units or parking spaces to unit, excuse me, given the location. That just seemed to fit and work out here. I think that there's an opportunity for bus transit. There is a stop in front of Trolley with a covered shelter as well. I think that question came up several times, both through county planning as well as I think in one of the initial responses that we saw. I want to talk a little bit about the site itself in discussion with town staff. Regional stormwater is available, and we are in the drainage district for this area. So we're treating stormwater quality with proposed bioretention and tree plantings. Stormwater quantity will be handled off-site. I'm sure Lance and his folks will have several comments in getting us in compliance with the speedy permit requirements for that. Pedestrian connectivity, we are continuing or completing, I guess, the sidewalk along the inside loop of Parkside Drive by connecting to the 2 dead-end sidewalks at our east and west connection, and also providing sidewalk access all the way around the building as well. There is a park, I think it's Blue Heron Park, a little bit to our west as well. So there will be pedestrian connectivity through the existing sidewalk network there. We really have tried to make this be an active site by pushing the parking behind. I think the form-based code really wants the buildings in the front, parking behind and screening. outside recreation area, which is shown on the landscape plan, which is also part of our package that we amended. And just to get through the variance question, there's a minimum maximum building setback of minimum of 5 feet and a maximum of 20. And along Parkside Drive, unfortunately, we love to be in full compliance because it would give us a lot more room on the site to kind of activate or provide additional screening in the back, but we've got a 15-foot wide RG&E easement with electric and fiber or telephone lines only a couple feet inside of that line. And so in order to provide the minimum setbacks required from existing infrastructure, we had to set, call it the parallel line of the building right at that 20-foot line across here. And because of the curve of the road, there was only so much without building a curved building, which I'm sure Dan would love to design, but didn't quite fit into Chris's budget. You know, we tried to get as much of that within that 5 to 20 foot, but we did submit a supplementary build to zone figure for consideration. We've got an application in before the zoning board as well. So I'll turn it over to Dan just to talk about the building a little bit and the other variants that we have, and then we as a team can answer questions for the board.
Thank you. Yeah, again, my name is Dan Galati with SWBR. Matt was talking about the active site. You can see on the center of the building where the angle kind of kicks, there's both an entrance from the street and an entrance back to the parking. Immediately left of that sidewalk to the parking, we have sort of an outdoor court area, outdoor patio for the residents. We have a concept for it now with some basic seating and you know, umbrellas at the tables and things like that. Will be more fully developed. To the east side of the building, we have a little bit of blank site on this plan. What's out there is some planting buffers for the form-based code, some benches, seating areas for residents, and then some open lawn area, whether that's for sunning or throwing a frisbee or whatever you want to do. The building itself, 4-story wood framed apartment building, predominantly 1-bedroom apartments. There are 8 out of the 48 that are 2-bedroom apartments, the rest are 1s. There's a building management office with, you know, property manager, reception person, property maintenance staff person. There's mail facilities, package delivery, all that kind of stuff. There's laundry facilities, elevator access to all the floors. There's a community room inside the building right adjacent to that outdoor patio. So those kind of functions can have some synergy between them. And the typical trash rooms, mechanicals, things of that nature. There is a rendering in this package somewhere. I'm not sure where it is in page order, probably towards the end if I had to guess, or it could be a different file.
What number were you on, sir?
That one on the left right there that you're scrolling.
This one?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see.
All the way down.
Architectural drawings.
Floor plans and elevations has the just line work.
Yeah, that one.
That one looks like a
Thank
good one.
you. So we'll probably need to scroll down a little bit in this, but what will load up is rendering of the street facing elevation. And we'll be able to describe the one architectural building variance we're looking for. And that's related to the transparency requirements in the form-based code. With apologies for getting the exact numbers. I believe that ground floor wants to be 50% transparent. Yeah, I think it's gonna be the last page. There it is. Thank you. I think the ground floor wants to be 50% transparent. And the upper floor is 40%, if I'm getting my numbers right. And honestly, those are very high amounts of transparency for residential use when you're trying to balance against privacy. And it's also, unfortunately, a very high transparency amount for wood frame construction. The reality is wood frame construction, load bearing walls, it's very cost effective to build. It allows us to build this housing at an affordable level with the state support. But you need the walls to also hold up the building, and it needs to do both gravity work and lateral work against wind loads. So you need long sections of wall that are flat with nothing on them to do that structural work. And we also need nice open sections of wall for people to have a great place to live. So we have to balance that out carefully. This design that you're seeing is getting percentages, I want to say we're in the 25% range. Thank you. Should have that written down. 25% transparent range. As a comparison, the project next door, the Trolley Station Apartments, which completed about a half a dozen years back, it's about 19% transparent. And
with all due humility as the architect, I think it turned out very nice and is an asset to the community. So we're doing our best to reach towards the required transparency goals. But in reality, in order to hit those goals, we would need to build a steel frame type building that doesn't need solid walls, and then add extra layers of mitigation to give privacy back to residents. So it's sort of a challenging number to hit. So what we've done, our goal is to create a handsome looking building that faces the street and shows the activity of the people living there while allowing them to balance their own privacy. So the materials you're seeing are a brick base that ranges from a water table below the first floor windows up to the second floor in some places. The strong red color is a fiber cement panel. It's a nice, long-lasting, durable material that is sort of playing off some of the red that again is in the property next door. I think both projects use some of that red. There's a simple taupe siding as a neutral canvas, and then a gray color at the center areas to set it off as distinct and different. And then each recessed balcony actually has more fiber cement plank, but it's a wood stain, so it has the appearance of a wood siding.
It's the gray siding or fiber cement?
The
middle
gray is also fiber cement panel. The taupe color is a plank. It's a fiber cement plank siding.
Oh,
So fiber cement is the dominant material because it's a cost-effective, long-lasting, durable material that it does the job for us. We upgrade to a masonry down low to handle our winters in our climate a little better and the salts and snows that we deal with at grade. Every apartment has a at-grade patio or above grade balcony with lots of daylight through those doors and windows there. Upper floors, other than the basic utilities for the building, are apartments. That's what's up there. There is a simple lounge on each floor where they can look out and get some sun, but otherwise in the first place. So I've probably talked long enough about the building. I'm sure we can open it up to any questions.
Parkman. 48 units. 8 2-bedroom, 41 bedroom.
Yes.
If this were in Metropolis, someplace Rochester, I might agree with that. 40 parking places for 48 apartments or 42?
Right? Yeah, as Matt was noting before, on all of these affordable housing projects, this is a very common comment. Statistically, historically, every affordable project I've worked with uses less than we pave. It always does. So the project next door was under the old zoning standards, had a higher parking standard. And we, on that project, reduced the amount that we paved by dedicating some banked for future, and the lot's still never full. So they've got some parking demand analysis that shows that we're a little bit more than what they think they'll need because it's a slightly more rural site that is a little farther away from the metropolitan Washington kind of amenities.
but you have areas that you can mark as land bank.
This site does not. This site is very tight. If we want to flip back to the site plan, it's easy to show that.
So 42 would be the max.
It's probably room to maybe shoehorn.
Yeah, so
but-
at the expense of landscaping and some of the buffering, for example, we could wrap additional spaces here, but that cut into some landscaping and separation we were trying to do. I would say that, and again, wrapping in some islands, we probably could fit another 6 to 8 spaces on the site if you had to. Right now, that's stormwater and drainage along the side there. So, possible, but again, we feel very comfortable given the number, at the 0.6 ratio, we're somewhere around 30 to 32 spaces. We're at 42, so almost 25% more than what we anticipate.
It's surprising.
And I want to stick with parking, but expand on it a little bit with a question. So a lot of the units that you show are as accessible to some degree. Is there a need or consideration for additional handicap parking spaces?
Yeah, we had some discussion on that earlier today. I think the ratio of car ownership for accessible is even a little bit less than that 0.6 ratio. So 4.2 is usually right at the number. That is something that these guys or their property managers can monitor. And we can always add that later if needed, or reserve a space for a specific unit by signing, hey, this is for unit 27, or if the
Right.
population is much higher than we
Right.
anticipate.
Okay.
On that point of Amanda's, there's 4 units that show as handicap, but you only have the 2. So what you're saying is you're banking on 4 handicap possibilities, but only 2, but will grow if needed.
Yeah, as Matt was saying, I'm not sure if the mic picked it up, but it's, as we said, the affordable parking ratios statistically tend to be lower than market rate. The accessible parking ratios tend to be lower than that. So this is we're reasonably confident that this is a good number. We can absolutely look at it again. Our current approach is that on-site management will monitor that need. And if they're finding that it's not working, they can address it with some additional painting for one. And again, as we said, there is room to wedge in 1 or 2 more spots in the future if we need to address that.
What size are your spaces?
9 by 18s.
9 by 18. You're at 9 by 18. Can't always slow around.
And just to briefly mention what we have on the site right now, Matt mentioned we already met with the fire department. This long stretch on the lower right corner of the building that only has single parking, and along the left side of the building that does not have parking. The left side is partly serving storm management, but those are the 2 points of fire truck access that we're required to have for ladder trucks. And we work with the fire marshal because we're just too far from the street to meet those regulations from the street side.
This was my only comment, was parking on this, mainly because you showed a management office and you talked about a manager and then you talked about a maintenance. So in my mind, that's two parking spots that are gone. So now you're down to a few. Did you factor all that in? Because those spots are pretty much going to be there if those people are going to be maintaining it.
Yeah, thank you. That's great point. And all the statistical work we've done, all these projects are equivalent. They all have on-site property management. They all have on-site maintenance. And so it is not an assigned parking per unit. It is the statistical result tends to be that 0.6 spaces per unit meets all the needs you described. And so we've gone more than that on this site.
And then from the maintenance standpoint, this is on the smaller side. They have a full-time guy there all the time. There would probably be someone that's going to various sites as well. So the staffing levels would be a little lighter just because of the number of units.
And back to that, therefore, I think I heard you say it, but is there a bus stop near here, or are you going to make bus stop? Same with school stops for buses.
So yeah, thanks for mentioning the school bus. I did see that question come. The school's transportation district comes up with the routing, the stops based on need and the applications every year. So that's something that the school district handles separately or outside of what we would be involved with. There is a stop just inside of that driveway to the south and east at the neighboring project, and it does have a covered shelter there as part of the stop.
Yeah, that existing stop is literally right at the bottom of the plan we're seeing here on the far lower right corner, just off their driveway, off the right of way.
So that's the school. Was there a bus spot? Is that where the bus stop?
That's an RTS stop. That's the bus stop. The school, as Matt was saying, they will adjust as the need comes up as this application goes forward.
Thank you.
Affordable housing, what's the rent going to be?
Rents? Yeah. No, I did not bring the rents with me. It's going to be various area median income levels between 50 and 70%, I believe, is where we are right now. We have a preliminary market study, but in terms of the higher, the 70%, those are set at just about 10% discount to what we found as the market rent. So it's affordable, but it's not deeply subsidized. It's workforce, right?
Tying into the transportation, I don't see anything that gives greater access to bicycle or pedestrian traffic, tying into more of the complete streets goals that we're hoping to have in this area as well.
Well, as Matt noted at the beginning, the first thing we're doing is completing the sidewalk connection between our 2 neighbors that they both started. We're internalizing that with a walking route around our building. So from anywhere in the building, you can get out to the existing pedestrian infrastructure. We are,
That's only intended for the backside, correct? And does the width allow for bicycle traffic as well?
the existing sidewalks would not allow for bicycle traffic, I don't think. We would presume, we are providing bike walking on our site, and we would presume that they would leave with the shared vehicular route on the street and through our parking lot.
And just out of general curiosity, are you intended to do any EV charging stations on the property?
Yeah, actually, the state funding mechanisms these days are requiring a minimum number of EV parking stations. I believe we're going to be looking at 4, if my math is correct. I'll have to double check the regulations. Any parking lot over 20 spaces now starts requiring a charging station. It's either 2 or 4. So yes, there will be a couple on site.
So that's 4 off the 42.
Yes. It's either 2 or 4. I gotta double check the
well,
regulations.
I mean, it would
but
be
yes.
deducted from the 42, so.
Well,
There
they
is
can be
no-
utilized by non-EVs, meaning people can park in them if there's no other spaces, but
Right.
we would anticipate those EV ratios are gonna continue to grow.
Right.
So they aren't.
Well, but if you're taking advantage of state funding, you're also going to run into the situation that those have to be accessible to non-residents, so they have to be open to the public.
Under the current regulations, no, they are accessible to anyone using the property, not anyone driving the street.
Okay,
That-
so you won't be targeting the build ready incentives that actually pay for the installation of it. That's not something you're talking about different incentives that you're seeking.
Correct. We're not going for the build ready incentives.
Okay.
It's the affordable housing funding has some EV requirements.
Just kind of add to the green and energy efficiency, we're also proposing solar panels on the roof to offset some of the
That's nice.
load on the roof.
Yeah, so the requirements from the affordable housing is that you put signage on those spots for the EV, dedicated for EV parking. If there's no other place to park, you park there. It's not legally permitted like an accessible spot is.
Is this state funding that you have to get in line to, or you have to apply for, or do you have it in hand, or is it conditional upon approval by the town, or?
It is a competitive application process.
Okay.
That application is much more competitive when you have site plan approvals in hand, which is why we do this part first. The developers go at risk for this early part to get to that level of readiness to be competitive. So that's what we're doing here, is trying to get to that stage.
Is that the same money DeMarco went for with Creekview?
I'm not familiar with that project. Don't know.
No, similar, really similar.
I know.
Are
it's
you guys going to
competitive.
tax credit
Yeah,
to sell?
so the current schedule is the competitive RFP is supposed to be released on Friday, due the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Thanks for that.
We anticipate, the typical 3 months from application submission, find out if we get awarded. We have to be ready to, break around 6 months after that.
Are they saleable tax credits?
Yes.
Yeah, then it's like.
So yeah,
And not related to the project, but in general, what is that incentive program?
it's the state's Housing and Community Renewal, HCR, tax credit program, and they have all kinds of buckets of money within there, but it's built around that core of the tax credits, where they give credit to the developer sells them to investors to get cash to build, the investors pay 90, 95, 85 cents per dollar of tax they owe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it comes with, from, at least in our case, we're asking for low interest loans. There's no hard debt on a project like this, which allows us to keep the rents affordable, over 30, 40, 50 years.
And requires it, frankly. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from the board is concern over the parking.
Yeah, and let's go to the landscape plan. So we didn't look at that. I think that was one of your other drawings.
Yeah, I think if you go back to the menu there, it might have been the last document on the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, what do you? We show a lot of boxes, boxwoods. No.
So yeah, this is our attempt within, again, the tight confines of this site to provide some of the buffering between us and our neighbors, between our parking drives and our street. Looking at the planting lists that are in the form-based code, and then provide a fairly standard spread of ground plantings around the building to soften the edge where it hits the ground. And we've got some of those shade trees on the right side of the project. And then again, on the left side, there's a little bit of the stormwater management. That's a sort of bioswale area, rain garden, fire retention, thank you. And a few shade trees around that. We try to break up the parking a little bit with a couple of trees. Again, just looking at what the form-based code asks us to do, and
Yeah, trying to dodge utilities and easements.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you got that sanitary.
There's also a gas line back there too.
right. On our south, there's multiple easements and the electrical across the front.
Isn't that line of shrubs in the sanitary?
Yeah,
It's right on the edge of it, I think.
Okay.
yeah, some of them do fall in it, and that's why we primarily went with shrubs instead of trees, just because those could be
Easily removed if they had to be. Roots are gonna be less of an issue and easier to get out of the way.
That one tree in the island that's out of the easement, or?
It's actually between the two easements, if I'm reading that right.
Yeah, it's on the edge of the gas
It's close.
easement, outside of the sanitary easement.
Yeah, the one centered on the property line and the other one's in here, so that one's, we may need to.
All
nudge that south
all
a
the
little bit.
trees are out of the sanitary easement. We're working with NICEAG on the gas easement as far as any plantings through there.
Yeah, I know there's some buffering requirements in the form-based code, but I assume, I was looking at quickly today, you know, the 10-foot. That, lighting. I know we're pretty specific on our spec sheets or cut sheets for lighting standards. I think they're 12-foot poles.
I believe up to 18 feet.
Was it 18?
Yeah,
Maybe 12.
in the parking lot areas, I think for dedicated pedestrian routing, it's 12 feet, but we've got the LED that are dimmable, 3,000 for the color. I believe if you go back to the original site plan piece that we had open, we do have a lighting plan there. Maybe all the way other right. Yeah.
Oh, is that the front, go down a little bit?
The graphic was for the street facing side.
Yeah, the rendering was the street.
Sorry, the other way. Sorry. There are balconies on both sides of the building, though. It's not just on the street side. I think one more is utility, two more, sorry, one more than this. Yeah, so you can see we've only got 5 light poles in. We'll be working with the lighting reps to try to shield some of those. We tried to pull the lights enough away from the street that it wasn't causing a glare, but also lighting the entrance because it's not lit along that street currently, I believe.
Any lighting on the building itself, the patios, will they have?
Yeah, the patios will have sort of, sometimes we'll do a little recessed ceiling fixture, sometimes there'll be a little decorative wall sconce kind of thing. There'll be pretty minimal light levels out there. We'll have a few accent lights near the entrance, egress lights at the stairs.
Yeah, all the entrances will be.
Nothing shining on the parking lot.
Right.
No.
Yeah, building lights will really just be little wall wash accent type fixtures.
Signage? Signage,
One of our, I don't remember which drawing has it, we looked at
We show a future sign that really hasn't been decided whether or not it'll be on the building or a monument sign. That'll be.
so we're putting in a placeholder for a future monument sign, we'll come back and talk about it, because they may end up wanting to put a building sign on instead. Either way, we just come
keep
back.
referring back to the form-based code, it's something entirely different from what we're used to working with.
Yeah, right.
Requirements are much different, so like, you know, we're gonna have to go through it line by line. I'm sure you've already done that. So.
Yes, Shauna and I have traded several
Yeah.
phone calls.
We have, and I just want to thank everyone from Edgemere and the architects and Matt, because we're learning as we go how to interpret this code.
The guinea pig.
And I did want to mention that I appeared before the county planning at their workshop. They did both
in favor of approving or recommending approval for the variances and site plan. So we answered a lot of the same questions that you folks had relative to parking and some of those other things, and we'll do that with them as well.
And so Chris, you were gonna say, listening to the discussion, right?
I think you need to show at least banked parking somewhere. I could see a negotiation on easement along Parkside Drive, maybe a little parallel parking. You know, I'm not a designer, but I'd look at that. You're gonna have to have some land bank, maybe talk to trolley station right next door. You can get a permanent easement on, I don't know what the board would want, 15 more parking spaces.
Well, I would, as an alternative, bringing a documented parking demand analysis be satisfactory?
Spot on. You
Well-
mentioned that Chris had done a parking analysis, come up with the 0.6. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Is it based on IT?
No, this is documented
Oh.
at various properties, so, counts or average usage.
Okay.
I think you're gonna still, that would justify the number of spots. I think you still gotta have at least a spot per unit and a little bit of a spare land bank
Well,
or somewhere next door.
based on the need or the form-based code, because the code really does not define a per unit space ratio, that kind of thing. And
I'd like to see the analysis before I conclude whether,
It's the discretion of the planning board.
whether there's additional parking needed, because I think we have the prerogative as a planning board to sort of decide how many spaces would be needed. And a lot of that's based on factual information, either IT analysis or a case study that
Sure.
you guys provide, so.
And we definitely, Chris, doesn't want to build something where he's got tenants yelling at him for not having parking spaces, so.
We don't want to have spaces sitting out there
Right.
with impervious.
Well, likely you don't
We
want to
don't
have
need-
vehicles that you can't accommodate and they're parking in the roads. that are-
Parking along Parkside Drive, so.
Right.
I think we owe you the good data to justify it, because we don't want to overpay and we don't want to underpay.
Right.
So we're all, as an industry, learning a little more about that than we used to, so.
Anything else the board has to recommend to the applicant in terms of things we'd like to see?
I just had one comment, if I may. The last architectural drawing you showed with the floor plans, it showed handicap on every single floor. I assume that's not true. The one that we saw only had the 4. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. We have two different symbols, and we could probably clean that up. The outline symbol is the state minimum level of adaptability, so that each apartment has the basic maneuvering clearances and blocking in the walls for future accommodations. And that's every new apartment on an accessible route, which once you have an elevator, everything's an accessible route, has to do that. So we show that symbol to meet that minimum level of adaptability. The ones that are filled in solid are the accessible adapted units.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, typically with sketch plans, we have a conversation with the applicant and we give input and things to consider. And I think we've done that as far as things we'd like to see. Sean, is there anything else we have to do at this point?
Hi, sorry. At this point, no, they will be on the town board agenda in October. And we'll roll through there to zoning board, and then you'll see them back at the end of October.
The zoning board just for that front setback.
The transparency in the front setback, so there'll be 2 for ZBA.
And Shauna, does the town board get a summary of this discussion, or does the planning board prepare anything that goes to the town board?
Right, I will prepare, we should do, even if we don't do a resolution tonight, a decision sheet of some sort with the recommendation that this move forward to the town board. And I will include that with my report to the board for, I can't think of the date, October 17th or 18th, I believe is the town board meeting. So we'll prepare a resolution for that meeting as well.
Do that.
Well, Shauna, hang on though.
Yes.
Is the board prepared to make that recommendation?
Oh, right, I guess sorry, I assumed, sorry to assume.
Well, yeah, again, I was under the impression that we were just doing sketch plan tonight and we have a conversation about the plan. I don't know if we're in a position to, the minutes reflect our discussion. You can certainly pass that on if it's to the point that it goes to the board. I know in the flow chart for the FBC, does the planning board determine the proposal complies with the minimum requirements of the FBC? If it does, then the planning board makes a recommendation to the town board. If it doesn't, then it goes to the ZBA, and knowing that it's going to the ZBA for the two variances, I just thought that maybe it would be premature for us to take any action on this thing at this point without the ZBA. I know we can't act on the site plan until the ZBA acts.
I think you can make this determination conditional.
Right,
Except for transparency and front setback.
right, because tonight is a recommendation, as you said, Chuck, if it meets the intent of the form-based code, and I guess the board, that would be up to the board to decide tonight if possible. And I push that just because Edgemere is waiting for the state to release the guidelines for their grant pending. They should be probably released by the end of September, which is this week, or maybe early October. So they want to get moving. I think they only have about a 6 to 8 week turnaround to actually apply. So we're trying to help expedite that process for them.
And we did intentionally make preliminary application, even though we knew we had sketch plan first, just to try to give the board enough information for consideration for that purpose.
Yeah, Sean, I guess the one question I have is, again, on the flow chart, it does say that it goes to the ZBA and then the ZBA sends it to the town board. And then according to your timeline, it goes to the town board and then to the ZBA. Is that one of the changes that are being made as part of this process due to the circumstances?
Wait, say that again, that it goes to the ZBA and then the town board?
The flow chart, just looking at the flow chart, is that based on the decision by the planning board to determine whether or not it's compliant with the form-based code, which in this case, currently has shown no, you need variances. So then it shows that, the flow chart shows that it goes to the ZBA, and then from the ZBA, it goes to the town board, and then from the town board back to the planning board. But in your schedule, again, just going through my notes, it shows it going to the town board and then to the ZBA. I don't know that that's an issue. I don't know that it's not an issue. I just wanted to know, I wanted to point that out.
I think you
Right,
can do it parallel.
Right, I hear what you're saying, but I looked at it, and Nadler can correct me if I'm wrong, that we are following the normal process, that it's almost like the MUO or a rezoning where we're looking for the planning board to endorse.
Well, the answer is, I haven't carefully reviewed the procedural flow chart requirements of the FBC. And I will do that tomorrow and send everyone an email saying this is how this is, I recommend this proceed. I think that, it's acceptable for the planning board to say, yeah, if they receive their variances, it, meets the minimum requirement or may meet the minimum requirements so that they can move forward to the town board.
And it just so happens the town board meets one day before the zoning board this time. So to hit those out of order.
Yeah.
Hitting them out of order saves a lot of time.
Well, let me ask the board how they want to move on this thing. Another option would be.
You have another meeting, don't you, before then?
We meet on the 11th. John is diligent about preparing the minutes of this. He hasn't done before we get home tonight. So we'll have a draft of the minutes. They won't be approved because they won't be approved until the 11th. But Shawnee, you could take the highlights of those minutes as to what we discussed tonight and submit that to the town board, saying this was a discussion, and I think for the most part, we like the project. I think with some of the discussion we had tonight, if that can be accomplished, I think we're in fairly good shape without committing to the site plan, because this is completely non-committal. Because, it's not that kind of vote. But at least that's something to get it in front of the town board, and they'll have the idea of what the planning board discussed as far as looking at the sketch plan.
I think that's reasonable. Also, the town board has seen this already. So it's not going to be unfamiliar to them. So I think that's a good idea, Chuck.
Well, and if the town board realizes that the planning board has some issues, concerns about the planning and some of the other things we talked, parking, not planning, parking, they can send that back to us for the review of the site plan, knowing that those issues will be addressed hopefully to the site plan review.
And then maybe, John, your meeting minutes could reflect, unless any of the 5 planning board members object, that the planning board does not oppose this moving forward to the next step in the process.
I concur.
Everybody good with that language?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but do we have to do a resolution or a vote on it?
No. Well,
because the board needs to decide in its entirety, right?
It just did. Everyone nodded.
It was consensus, not a actual motion.
Okay, just as long as it records that way, I mean.
John's gonna record it that way, the appropriate way, but until I take a look at this code, I don't want you taking a vote on the sketch plan, please.
No, on the recommendation to go forward.
You're not opposed to that, right?
I am not opposed to it, but I'm just wondering, for recording, do we have to make a recording that state that we do push it onto the town board? I mean, it's just something's missing, I think, in my mind, but.
Bob, I think that very well may be, but I don't think Chuck wants to, and I concur with him, make that recorded recommendation push to the next step, because the actual code says, your recommendation would be that the proposal complies with the minimum requirements of the FBC district, but this doesn't. It's not clear enough and it's not close enough to the road. I don't think anybody has a problem with those things, but the flow chart says it's got to go to the ZBA. So my not opposed to is sort of a jury rig around that. But yes, when we're not pressed up against it. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out. If you were right, Bob.
Can you say the consensus again?
The planning board is not opposed to this
application.
To the application moving forward in the FBC process, pending the outcome of the zoning board's variance applications.
It's like you've done this before.
Not for this, not for this. Nobody has yet.
Thank you.
He'll get his bill.
I have come up with sentences.
You got that, John?
Yeah, thank you.
So it's a definite maybe.
So that we come back and satisfy what you need. The biggest thing I'm hearing is good data on the parking. Is there anything else that I've lost in thinking about parking that we need to address when we come see you again?
Stormwater management, I guess MRB and Marathon will be working on that. Like we talked about landscaping, we talked about.
The basic requirements of the form-based code.
Signing, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna just have to make sure that the application is complete as possible, with as much data you guys can possibly provide on the building side, the site plan.
Yeah, and Sean and I again have gone back and forth from the preliminary, we supplemented one of them with that additional build to zone, so I think that we're
complete from that standpoint. Okay, so does that give you? Yep.
We got our path
Direction?
forward, we understand the.
So we will be-
the area of concerns.
So good luck with the ZBA. And after, assuming you get variances from them, then you'll be back to see us and we'll talk site plan. Perfect.
As you think about site plan, definitely please consider the complete streets. I mentioned that earlier, but this is an area that I think we have to emphasize the need for complete streets.
Okay. Bicycles, pedestrians. Okay,
Thank you.
and you were comfortable with the affordable housing aspect of it?
Yes, yes, you asked my question, so thank you. Appreciate that.
Which,
Yep.
Although,
Yes,
next time you come in, it's interesting. When we learned about this with the DeMarco project, I think all the board members were kind of a little more detail on the process and the,
For your subsidy.
on the subsidy,
Like schedule and.
like how it works.
How it works.
The 5 board members of the board and their attorney and their engineer were absolutely fascinated, and I think it informed you for future decisions. And these are, to the Chuck's right, are all newer members who weren't here for the kind of almost 400 unit one 5 years ago-ish.
Can you return that?
But just, you know,
Yeah,
just
sure.
give us a little summary.
Perfect.
It's interesting
How it
and,
works.
you know,
Sure.
Because, well, not to call it a discussion, but there's section 2, because they didn't get awarded the money for section 2, it sits out there empty ground and, you know, we had big plans, there were 4 sections.
Yeah.
right? 3.
but one,
Three sub- yeah.
4 was Market Rate,
Yeah, 4 was market rate.
but was also the
Last.
first phase.
Well,
To the left.
physically the first
Yeah,
phase, yeah.
physically.
You're right, and it's good for you to understand.
Yeah.
When we get to push and can push, and then what holds us up,
Yeah,
and what makes us stop and we don't have control over, so. yeah.
exactly. And this, it's not gonna cause problems. I know how those applications work. This is a 1 phase, that was a 4 phase. Way more units.
And the last thing we want to do is hold up your.
Yeah.
I think, I think having approvals certainly helps your score.
Yes.
And, you know, we'll certainly, in fact, I think with Creekview, we had a special meeting just so.
Yeah, and I think once the process was explained to the planning board started pushing to get it done so that they could make their.
Yeah, readiness is a huge part of the application, and it's something that you start sooner than you probably would.
Right.
And the folks at the state level understand that this is where a project stops. It's not a building permit where a project stops. If something's going to be imposed, it's here, not there. So they understand this is a huge hurdle for them to know that we're past. Yeah. Local support locally is a big deal. You know, like the project isn't supported, then, you know, it's not gonna see the light of day, so. Right.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
All righty. Down to the minutes. I have a motion for the September 13th.
I will make that motion to approve the minutes for September 13th.
Second,
I will second.
motion second. Nice job, John. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. Letters of surety releases, none of those, other business. Anybody have anything for the good of the board? I know we have our special projects later. Lance just supplied to the group that is looking at the design standards, updated design standards. So we're looking through those now. So that should be wrapping up shortly. Nothing new on any of the other projects.
I know I owe you guys, at whatever meeting it was, I said I would look at the code and share revisions. And I'll either target that for 2nd October or 1st November, depending on what our workload is like.
Yeah, it was something we were looking at and you said, is there affordable care, affordable housing component? Was it?
Yes, it,
What
and
was
now I'm
the
gonna forget
regulations?
what it was. I have it
Well,
written down
whatever.
somewhere, but I know.
Okay,
It's not top of mind. I apologize.
that's all right.
Let me see.
You were busy for a little while there.
I was busy.
PT.
Oh, I'm still busy.
You're still busy with PT?
I'm still a mess,
You get a
yes.
All right,
Appreciate that.
we've,
Thank you, Mr. Nadler.
no referrals from town board, CBA. Okay, training. Tomorrow, some of us are going to the culinary or the old culinary, the New York Kitchen.
Is
Or,
that just you and I now? Or-
yeah,
or-
Scott's chief cook and bottle washer at work.
People I'm November too.
Oh, no,
And
I'm sorry.
Just a couple
In a quarter.
of observations
Yep.
from my side. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Mark. You're up.
Very disappointed.
I mean, we're hearing tonight that there's one more, this was the incentive tonight towards EV charging was a new one for me. So there's more of it that'll be coming. Again, I'll just put it out there that if we think we need to be we know that code is going to change in 2024 for that. But if we care, then we probably need to think about that. I think, and just another just general, maybe it's more of a question and combination of opinion, is the whole piece around the complete streets that we're trying to drive towards form-based code and everything else. And we talk about it and then it feels like we pull back based on what they present to us. I guess I would like to, in some way, get us more unified on that topic or more educated on it, whatever it needs to be to decide what that means to us. So that when we get these projects in front of us, it's not a nice to have. It becomes we decided that we want this for the community because it meets our comprehensive plan and it's part of form-based code so that we execute that. So those are my opinion pieces for tonight.
Matt?
Well, it's not so much an opinion, Chuck. I think you're right. It has to be there, but you have to decide what the complete streets are for these purposes.
Well,
What the requirements are, and you gotta apply them consistently.
are we applying complete streets to private driveways? That's where I don't think it applies to that. It applies to public roads. Anything that whether it be the state, the county, or the town will have, either does or will have to maintain.
Private
Sure.
or existing public roads or new public roads, it doesn't matter.
I mean, here with Parkside Drive, given the
You can make it with a
opportunity.
bike lane in, but it's gonna stop at two ends.
Yeah,
It's the same as the sidewalk argument. We keep saying, we make them put in sidewalks because they'll eventually connect.
and here is the case of that. And this is definitely, closing the loop, so to speak, in terms of the sidewalk on Parkside.
Here's my suggestion. Shauna and Lance sort of come up with a proposal on how to apply complete streets to the planning board. You guys can consider it next week.
I heard Sean and Chris.
I don't know, what you want me to do
Well,
design?
if we
work?
ever do a highway master plan, that was the intent of that, was to assign which streets and roads would get what application of complete streets.
Yes, you finish that highway master plan?
You gonna pay for it?
Legal asks for us to do it, we'll show them to do it. I know better than to do this.
It's on the budget for next year. 400. All right. So we meet on the 11th of October. Couple of things. We got Mr. Venezia back for his 2 industrial buildings out on Brickyard. We'll have Jocelyn back for Westlake Road, and we got a authorization to proceed with mixed-use residential zoning referral to the planning board advisory report for refers to rezoning request of 2435 Brickyard Road from industrial to mixed MUO to the town of Canandaigua Planning Board pursuant to town code. And further request the planning board provide a report to the town board of the town of Canandaigua within 60 days of the date of this. So on the 11th, Shauna will go over what the applicant is, Mr. Venezia in this case, is requesting. And we will decide whether it's appropriate under the MUO at that date. So that, look forward to that on the 11th.
And I will be providing you a report before that, how it may or may not meet the intent of the comp plan, et cetera.
You know, Shauna, Eric had done a report on, in the same area, maybe larger. Maybe you can dig that out somewhere. It was a report to, when we looked at that the overall big picture that the lands of Venezia. And maybe you can pull that out and glean something from that too. And maybe I can find my copy too.
I think I can find it. I think I know exactly where it might be. I'll look tomorrow.
Okay. Maybe helpful. All right, anything else for the good board?
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:35.
second? Second, I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks one and all. Thanks, Mark. Thanks,
Hey,
Bob.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, get better, Shauna.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Feel better, Shauna.